Your inherited map burned. Now what? The institutions that once handed out ready-made purpose feel thin. The rituals sound memorized. The words are still there, but the gravity is gone. Friedrich Nietzsche put this crisis into a sentence that was never meant as a smug slogan, but as a civilizational alarm. God is dead. He meant that the highest guarantees, transcendent anchors for truth, goodness, and meaning, lost their binding force in the actual conduct of life. The sky that stabilized value dimmed, and with it the borrowed certainty that told you who to be. This is not license for posturing or an edgy pose against belief. It is a summons to responsibility. If the map is ash, you either drift or you draw. What follows is a straight walk through collapse toward authorship. What the death of God actually announces. How nihilism sickens in two directions. What value creation asks of a human being. What responsibility looks like without a halo. How work and love can hold when the old scaffolds are gone. And how to build without cynicism while others trade in sneers. The flames already happened. The question is whether you will live as smoke or as a new fire that lights a path others can follow. Nietzsche's madman runs into the marketplace and cries out that we have killed God and must become worthy of the deed. He is not crowing about clever atheism. He is describing a slow cultural fact. The metaphysical certainties once invoked to ground truth and morality no longer command unforced obedience. People kept the vocabulary, but set aside the discipline. The result is a decoupling. Practices that depended on an absolute begin to wobble while the words limp on. A kind of moral pantomime. The madman's image of unchaining the earth from its sun is exactly the point. The coordinates that oriented judgment are no longer fixed, so the compass spins. This is why the line lands like thunder. If the highest value that guaranteed all other values is no longer effective, then everything downstream becomes negotiable. Good and evil slide into preference, truth into consensus or utility, purpose into comfort or branding. Nietzsche does not lament the loss because he thinks the old order was flawless. He laments because most will pretend nothing happened and try to live off a dead inheritance. The real danger is not disbelief, but self-deception. Talking like believers while arranging lives as if nothing transcendent binds. That hypocrisy rots character faster than honest error. He insists that collapse does not mean nothing matters. It means nothing is guaranteed. Values will still exist, but they will require creators rather than custodians. Without the old sky, the burden shifts. You must ground your judgments without borrowed authority, defend them without sacred insulation, and live them under pressure without choir support. The tone is tragic serious, not gleeful. A civilization cannot shrug off its sun and expect warmth to remain. Place this in your day. The temptation after a shared absolute collapses is to live by convenience and call it maturity. You lower standards quietly. You rename vices as strategies. You outsource meaning to metrics and call that real Nietzsche calls that the last man blinking contentedly, avoiding pain and greatness with equal zeal. The alternative is revaluation, asking with ruthless honesty which forms of life generate strength, clarity, and generosity, and which produce resentment, flattery, and decay. The proof is existential, not merely logical. A standard proves itself by what it makes of you over seasons. God is dead is therefore a dare. Will you face the new sky and accept that your days must be authored, not inherited? Will you stop pretending that slogans can do the work of sacrifice? Will you shoulder the loneliness that comes with choosing without a chorus? The point is not to sneer at altars, but to refuse to live by superior poses that collapse at the first bill. The earth is unchained from its sun. That is not an excuse to drift. It is a call to learn celestial navigation, to stand under a darker sky and still steer. When shared absolutes vanish, The human animal does not instantly become creator. It becomes tired or erratic. Nietzsche names both responses nihilism. The soft version is passive nihilism, a mood that looks like sophistication because it refuses to be fooled by convictions. You wake without an urgent why, pour your energy into distraction, and call irony a worldview. You change jobs to escape beginner's shame, change cities to escape your reflection, change partners to escape intimacy. Entertainment becomes sacrament because it demands least and numbs best. You think you are avoiding delusion. You are avoiding decision. The loud version is active nihilism. It moves, even thrills, because it tears down tables that other people still honor. It calls destruction honesty, rage courage, boredom clarity. There is a place for demolition, especially where rotten forms hide behind piety. Nietzsche just warns that the wrecking habit becomes its own addiction. If you only know what you are against, your energy needs enemies to stay alive. Eventually, you burn everything that could have given you a task and call the ashes freedom. Both forms are understandable. After a collapse, drift feels like rest, and demolition feels like proof. Both are expensive. Drift breeds contempt for the self, because part of you knows it is dodging the chance to choose. Demolition breeds a desert, because people and projects that might have become homes do not survive perpetual attack. The body registers the bill. Passive nihilism gives you a slack face and a nervous thumb. Active nihilism gives you a hot face and a shallow breath. Neither gives you a spine. Nietzsche's remedy is biological, not sentimental. Recover the capacity to affirm. Affirmation is not cheerfulness on command. It is the will's ability to shape a course and bear the cost. Where nihilism says, "Why bother?" affirmation says, "Watch." Where nihilism demands a guarantee before acting, affirmation acts into uncertainty and becomes a guarantee for others. Physiology answers. When you commit to a form that requires effort and truth, your nervous system starts releasing the chemistry of pursuit again. Attention sharpens. Hands reach for tools. Humor warms from sarcasm to play. Beware the counterfeit cure. Frightened by vacancy, many adopt a pre-packaged fervor. It supplies enemies, a uniform, and borrowed significance heard in new clothes is still heard. The test stays simple. Does the thing you joined increase your courage, honesty, and generosity? Does it make you more able to build, to withstand, to tell the truth kindly? If not, you traded one sedation for another and renamed it awakening. Nihilism is useful only as a solvent for stale lies. If you linger in it, it dissolves you. Treat the state of collapse as a clearing. Stop pretending you can live forever on critique. Choose something sturdy to say yes to and pay for it in hours. The sirens will lose their grip when your day has a keel, a heading, and the first mile behind you. Whatever you tore down, you now have to build. Value creation in Nietzsche's sense is not a poster of maxims on a wall. It is the slow forging of a style of life that hardens under weather. He calls the underlying drive the will to power, often caricatured as lust to dominate others. He means the deeper tendency of living things to expand, differentiate, and articulate a form. The oak expresses its power by becoming an oak, not by strangling the grass. You express yours by shaping your drives, talents, and pains into a coherent pattern that produces work, fair dealing, and a recognizable tone. Creation starts with ranking. When the old table of values clears, everything you could do rushes in with equal claim. Rank or drown. Prefer what increases strength and truthfulness over what merely anesthetizes. Prefer practices you can repeat without decay over experiences you must recover from. Prefer acts that transmute pain into ability over rituals that transmute pain into grievance. This is not Puritanism. It is sanitation for a will that just escaped the swamp. In a month, you will feel the difference in your face and in the tone of your messages. The grand no makes space. The binding yes raises the frame. Many stay in the no and feel proud of the demolition. Nietzsche calls that clever adolescence. The yes is where adulthood begins. Pick a project worth years and let it change you. Choose a standard you will pay for. Make a promise that binds even when applause moves on. The yes gives your refusals context. You are not avoiding for the joy of avoiding. You are conserving energy for the build. Creation requires solitude and resistance. Solitude, not as sulking, but as a workshop where borrowed voices die and your own timbre emerges. Resistance, not as appetite for drama, but as friction that polishes. Leave the chorus long enough to hear your theme, then re-enter the square to test it. You will hear where it rings false and where it cuts. Over time, style appears. Your way of solving, speaking, celebrating, and refusing. Style is value with rhythm. Beware aestheticization detached from outcome. A life can become a curated mood board that never ships anything that endures. Nietzsche's creator is answerable to reality if your values do not improve the world for anyone. They are self-hypnosis. If your creations exist only to shock, they are adolescent. He wants artifacts that carry force and clarity a little farther than before. That could be a firm that keeps its word, a clinic that tells patients the whole truth with dignity, a small school that teaches kids to promise and keep. The legend does not need a stadium to be noble. Hold cheerfulness as you build. Gaiety for Nietzsche is not denial of tragedy. It is the music that comes when a will recognizes it can shape without permission from vanished authorities. The sound is lighter than moralism and steadier than hype. It brings friends. It does not require enemies. Where the no stood with arms crossed, the yes rolls up sleeves. The world does not owe you meaning after the collapse. It offers material. You become meaning by what you make. Without a sky of absolutes, responsibility thickens, not thins. Nietzsche names the adult version of a human being the sovereign individual, a person who can promise and keep, not because a priest or policeman watches, but because he has formed himself into someone who can answer for tomorrow's self. Promise-making is not bureaucracy. It is how you declare governance over your impulses. You bind future you to a course and keep him from running at the first storm. In a world without external guarantors, that capacity is sacred. Self-legislation is the method. You are done being a bundle of preferences. You write law for your house, not a manifesto of 50 commandments that no one can live, but a few articles that you can audit. In this work, you aim for the kind of clarity that makes choice boring in the best sense. Do I tell the truth here? The law already says yes. Do I take money on these terms? The law already says no. You stop negotiating with yourself every hour. That is how peace returns to the diaphragm. Nietzsche's hardest test for responsibility is the thought experiment of recurrence. Imagine that a demon told you that this life in every detail would be yours again and again. The same pains, delights, hesitations, loyalties, and betrayals. Would you curse the messenger or call him a god? He is not teaching a cosmology. He is testing your arrangement of days. Are you shaping a pattern you could will to return? If not, what must be altered so that repetition becomes bearable, then desirable? That question edits more ruthlessly than guilt. Responsibility is never an alibi for harm. Without a sky, there is a temptation to act as a little god. Nietzsche is not recruiting wolves with better rhetoric. He wants straight backs, not predatory mouths. You measure your designs by their wake in other lives. A value that needs victims is counterfeit. A promise that requires lying is a breach wearing a crown. Trust becomes the coin of the realm when absolutes recede, and your reliability becomes more persuasive than your speeches. Practice in small circles before you pretend to scale. One friendship where you keep inconvenient promises. One workplace where your word lands on time. One household where your presence lowers fear. This is not a retreat from ambition. It is the only foundation that does not collapse. From there, you can risk larger vows. Founding a practice, adopting a child, building a commons of equals who want to grow. If the map is gone, the path is cut by repeated steps that hold. No halo, just signatures kept. Responsibility also includes repair. You will harm without intending, fail despite preparation, misjudge despite attention. You do not reach for motive as a shield. You reach for action. You apologize cleanly, absorb costs, and redesign so the same failure becomes less likely. That is not guilt's theater. It is respect for reality. A person who can promise and repair without drama becomes a landmark in any town. In the absence of metaphysical assurances, people will steer by such landmarks. Be one. When shared absolutes fade, work easily thins into placeholders and love into entertainment. You cycle roles waiting for a thunderbolt. Nietzsche pulls both back into seriousness without heaviness. Vocation is not a romantic lightning strike. It is the fit between your best strengths and real needs, discovered by doing and refined by setbacks. Projects are the unit that keeps you honest. A project is a promise with a deadline and a deliverable. It turns value creation into a calendar entry and attaches your ideas to consequences. Favor long arcs. Avoid serial newness that excuses you from paying beginner's taxes. Mastery is moral because it cultivates patience, accuracy, courage under boredom, and taste sharpened by evidence. Commit to a domain and let it remake you. That might be a small shop that never lies, a lab that publishes negative results, a team that rewards dissent in time to save money and morale. Let your resume be a record of kept promises, not of performed identities. Love operates by the same physics. In the absence of guardian absolutes, it must be authored by two sovereigns who prefer truth to drama. Choose a partner whose rise you can assist and who will not resent yours. Choose one with a talent for reality rather than an appetite for staging. Replace romance as spectacle with a shared project that forces growth. A household that protects dignity, a mission that concretely serves, a craft that requires both to stretch. You need not advertise it. You must construct it. Rituals still matter. They are not magic. They are governance. A weekly dinner without phones is a small constitution. A budget is sovereignty over appetite. Clear vows reduce the need for constant negotiation. You need not mimic your grandparents' forms to grasp their function. Use what works. Refuse what was rot dressed as tradition. Cultivate a commons of the strong, not bullies, not scolds. People who will make you braver and kinder by refusing to flatter or to sneer. 3 are enough. Share drafts. Ask for the sentence that is untrue in your pitch. Accept the correction that hurts and frees. Great crowds are useful for signals. Small tables are where futures are drawn. A community that prefers building to posturing is a rare oxygen. Contribute to one or form one. Guard attention like a monk guards hours. In the vacuum left by collapsed absolutes, algorithms would love to become your clergy. Refuse to let outrage set your day. Spend attention on work you can make heavier. Bodies you must keep capable. Friendships that survive hard truths. And institutions you can leave more honest than you found. Meaning is not given now. It is woven by repeated acts that rhyme. You are not asked to deny sorrow. You are asked to prevent sorrow from becoming your worldview. The world after collapse will not police your days. That is your job. Tie work and love to standards that can be defended without borrowed light, and watch drift turn into direction. A funeral has already happened. Nietzsche feared not grief, but the cowardice that often follows, sneering at what fell while refusing to build anything better. The way forward is neither reaction, forcing back forms you no longer obey, nor cynicism, finding status in predicting failure. It is serious play, taking up the builder's tools with laughter in the lungs and iron in the hands. Speak without a halo. You will still argue. Reasons still matter. You just stop expecting reasons to do the work that only example can. Say what you will try, the cost, who pays, and when you will check again. There is dignity in owning risk without divine cosigners. The demagogue sells consolations. The builder sells work. Choose your tongue. Educate the young for authorship, not merely critique. Teach them to run small experiments, to keep oaths, to distinguish between a thrilling pose and a reliable pattern. Give them the dead and living best, not as gods, but as tools. Offer a test they can carry when you are dust. Does this form make you stronger and kinder, clearer and braver, truer and more fertile? If yes, keep it. If no, thank it for the lesson and move. Public life will still require contention. Fight clean. Refuse to win by poison. The practices that let adversaries remain neighbors are precious when skies are empty. A society without shared absolutes needs more restraint, not less. Become the adult in the room who will lose a point to preserve the field where future points can even be scored. The fear that stalks many is that if nothing transcendent binds, everything is permitted. Nietzsche answers with a counter-fear. Look at the person you become when everything is permitted. If that person disgusts you, petty, dishonest, unfaithful, then permission was never your problem. Poverty of aspiration was. Arrange a life that would be worthy of a returning sky, even if it never returns live, so that a god, traveling incognito, would sit at your table and find the company good. Do not romanticize hardness. There will be dry seasons, humiliations that feel like verdicts, nights when meaning looks like a trick. The old absolutes once softened those blows. Without them, you will sometimes want to flee back to drift or demolition. Resist with a small oath you can keep. Choose one promise that makes tomorrow heavier with meaning. Keep it. Then another. That is how cathedrals are raised after funerals. One stone set with a laugh. One fault admitted and repaired. One friendship that survives a hard truth. You reach the end, which already means collapse is not your entertainment. Use this while the day is warm. Name one standard you will live without a halo. One project you will bind to a deadline. One relationship you will dignify with truth over performance. Share this with someone drifting between jobs and relationships who needs a reason to stand, and write in the comments below the sentence you are willing to stake this week, not for applause, but for alignment.